It was a quiet evening in the heart of the city. The streets hummed softly with the rhythm of life. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and purple. Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood actor known around the world, walked alone. He wore a hoodie covering part of his face, not because he wanted to hide, but because tonight he was not a movie star. He was just a man curious about the world and the people in it. As he turned a corner, he heard a soft, melodic sound. It was gentle, yet it carried through the air. It was the call to prayer. Keanu had never heard it up close before, and something about it pulled him in. Up ahead he saw a mosque. The tall minaret stood proudly, glowing under the golden streetlights. The doors were open and people were walking inside, their faces calm and focused. Keanu paused for a moment, watching. He had heard about Ramadan, the holy month of fasting, but he had never seen how people gathered during this time. Without thinking twice, he decided to step inside. The mosque was warm and inviting. It smelled of incense, and the soft murmur of prayers filled the air. At first, Keanu felt a little out of place. He was taller than most of the people there, and he wasn't sure if he should be inside. But no one seemed to mind. A young boy, no older than 10, walked up to him. The boy had bright eyes and carried a tray filled with dates. He smiled at Keanu and said, "Assalamu alaikum. Are you here to help with iftar?" Keanu hesitated. He had never been asked something like this before. But after a moment, he simply nodded and said, "Yes." He didn't want to explain who he was. He just wanted to help. The boy's smile grew bigger. "Great. Follow me," he said, handing Keanu the tray. Together, they walked toward a long table where volunteers were setting up food for the iftar meal. Keanu watched as people worked together. Their hands moved quickly but with care. There was a quiet sense of purpose in everything they did. He picked up a plate and began arranging food alongside them. No one treated him any differently. He wasn't a celebrity here. He was just another pair of hands helping out. As the time for iftar came closer, more people arrived. Families, elders, and children sat at the tables, waiting for the fast to end. Their faces showed exhaustion from the long day of fasting, but also gratitude and peace. Keanu sat next to an elderly man who looked at him warmly. They began talking, and the old man shared his thoughts. "This is my favorite time of the year," he said, his voice kind and full of emotion. "Ramadan is not just about fasting. It's about coming together, sharing what we have, and remembering what truly matters." Keanu listened carefully. He had always believed in kindness and humanity, but now he saw it in a way he never had before. The call to break the fast echoed through the mosque. Everyone paused. They reached for dates and water at the same time, a tradition that had been followed for centuries. Keanu followed suit. In that moment, he felt a sense of unity unlike anything he had experienced before. As the meal went on, the young boy returned to Keanu's side. "Thank you for helping," he said shyly. "You're really good at it." Keanu smiled, gently ruffling the boy's hair. "Thank you for letting me be part of this," he said. "It's an honor." The boy had no idea that the kind man sitting next to him was one of the most famous actors in the world. But in that moment, Keanu wasn't a celebrity. He was just another person sharing a meal, experiencing something beautiful. After dinner, Keanu stayed longer than he had planned. He helped clean up, listened to stories, and even joined in the evening prayers. Before he left, he walked to the donation box near the entrance. Quietly, he slipped an envelope inside. It held a generous sum of money, enough to help the mosque with repairs and renovations. The next day, the mosque was filled with excitement. Someone had found the envelope, and the community was amazed at the anonymous donation. The Yusuf, an elderly man with a kind face and a silver beard, stood before the congregation that evening. "Someone among us, or perhaps someone who visited, has shown great generosity," he said. "This act of kindness will help us repair our mosque and make it a better place for all. We may not know who this person is, but we pray that Allah blesses them abundantly." People whispered to each other, "Who could have done such a kind thing?" The young boy sat cross-legged on the carpet, resting his chin on his hands. He kept thinking about the tall, quiet man who had helped with iftar the night before. There was something special about him. Something different. Meanwhile, Keanu was back in his hotel room, still thinking about the night before. He couldn't stop picturing the boy's bright eyes or the old man's wise words. He decided he wanted to visit the mosque again, not as a helper this time, but just as an observer. That evening when he arrived, he saw a small group of children near the entrance. They held handmade signs that read, "Thank you, kind stranger, and your kindness inspires us." Keanu's heart swelled, but he kept his head down. He didn't want anyone to know it was him. The boy from the previous night spotted him right away. His face lit up. "You're back," he exclaimed, running up to Keanu. "Did you hear? Someone gave a lot of money to help the mosque. Isn't that amazing?" Keanu smiled. "It is amazing," he said. "Kindness has a way of spreading, doesn't it?" The boy nodded eagerly. "My dad says it's like throwing a pebble into a pond. The ripples keep going and going." Keanu crouched down to the boy's level. "Your dad is a wise man," he said. "What's your name?" "I'm Omar," the boy said proudly. "And this is my mosque." Keanu chuckled. "It's a beautiful place, Omar." Just then Omar's father walked over. He studied Keanu's face for a moment, as if trying to remember something. "Omar, don't bother the man," he said gently. "He's not bothering me," Keanu said quickly. "Omar was the one who invited me to help last night." Omar's father smiled, but he still seemed curious. "You're not from around here, are you?" "No," Keanu admitted. "I'm just passing through. But I wanted to learn more about Ramadan and your community. You've all been very welcoming." The man nodded. "Ramadan is about sharing and understanding. You're always welcome here." As the call to prayer echoed through the mosque, Keanu found a quiet place to sit. He watched as families laughed, prayed, and shared stories. It was so different from the loneliness he sometimes felt in his own life. After iftar, Omar ran up to him again. "Will you come back tomorrow?" he asked hopefully. Keanu hesitated. He didn't know how long he would stay in the city, but he couldn't say no to the boy. "I'll try," he said. "But even if I don't, remember what your dad said about the ripples. Kindness doesn't stop with just one person." Omar tilted his head, thinking hard. "So if I'm kind to someone, they'll be kind to someone else?" "Exactly," Keanu said, smiling. "And who knows how far those ripples will go?" That night, as Keanu walked away, he felt at peace. What he didn't know was that his small act of kindness had already started a chain reaction, one that would keep spreading just like ripples in water. The next day, Ali helped an old woman carry her heavy bags of groceries to her home. She was so thankful that she decided to give some extra food to the mosque. And just like that, kindness kept spreading like ripples in a pond. But Keanu's time in the city was not over yet. He didn't know that a local journalist had heard about a mystery person giving donations at the mosque. She wanted to find out who this kind person was, and her search would soon lead her straight to Keanu. The next morning, the local newspaper office was busy as usual. Phones were ringing, people were talking, and papers were everywhere. At her desk sat Layla, a young and determined journalist. She was staring at a blurry photo on her computer. A secret person had sent it to her. It was a grainy picture of a tall man wearing a hoodie, walking away from the mosque. The words under the picture said, "Mystery donor spotted." Layla leaned closer, trying to see the picture better. There was something about the way the man stood, the way he walked. It felt familiar. She didn't know why, but something inside her told her this was an important story. She quickly grabbed her notebook and left her office, her mind filled with questions. Who was this man? Why did he want to stay a secret? And why did he seem so familiar? When she reached the mosque, the morning prayer had just ended. The place was peaceful and quiet. Layla walked up to Yusuf, the leader of the mosque. She introduced herself and explained why she was there. "We are thankful for the donation," Yusuf said kindly but carefully. "But the person who gave it wished to remain a secret. We must respect their wishes." Layla nodded. She understood, but she wasn't ready to give up. "Of course," she said. "But this story could inspire others to be kind. Sometimes being anonymous is important. But sometimes sharing kindness can encourage more kindness." The Yusuf thought for a moment. Then he sighed. "All I can tell you is that the person was a visitor. He joined us for iftar and left a deep impression on many of us. But I cannot say more." Layla thanked him and looked around. Maybe someone else had seen the mystery donor. That's when she noticed a little boy sitting on the steps outside the mosque. He had a notebook in his lap and was drawing. "Hi there," Layla said, kneeling beside him. "I'm Layla. What are you drawing?" The boy looked up with bright eyes. "I'm drawing the mosque," he said proudly, showing her the picture. "And that's the kind man who helped us." Layla's heart beat faster. "The kind man?" she asked gently. "Can you tell me about him?" The boy nodded excitedly. "He's tall and has a nice smile. He helped us set up iftar and talk to my dad. He said kindness is like ripples in a pond." Layla's mind raced. This sounded like the same person in the photo. "Do you know his name?" she asked. The boy shook his head. "No. But he said he might come back today." Layla's eyes widened. This was her chance. She quickly thanked the boy and found a spot nearby to wait. She had her camera ready. If the mystery man returned, she would be there to capture the moment. That evening, as the sun began to set, Keanu walked back to the mosque. He hadn't planned to return, but something about Ali's hopeful face had stayed in his heart. As he got closer, he noticed a woman standing nearby. She had a camera and she was looking at him. Keanu felt uneasy. He thought about turning back. But before he could, Ali saw him and ran over. "You came back," the boy said, grabbing Keanu's hand. Keanu smiled, but he could feel the woman watching him. She was already walking toward them, holding her notebook. "Excuse me," Layla said politely but firmly. "I'm Layla, a journalist from the local paper. Can I ask you a few questions?" Keanu's heart sank. He had wanted to stay hidden, but now the secret was out. He looked at Ali, who was staring up at him curiously. "I'm just here to help," Keanu said softly. "That's all." Layla studied his face, and then suddenly it hit her. Her breath caught in her throat. You're Keanu Reeves?" she whispered in shock. Keanu sighed. There was no point in lying. "Yes," he admitted. "But I don't want this to be a big deal. I just wanted to help and learn." Layla's mind was spinning. A Hollywood star, quietly helping at a mosque, giving to charity and sharing kindness? It was an incredible story. "I understand," she said at last. "But people should know about this. Your actions could inspire others." Keanu shook his head. "Kindness doesn't need a spotlight," he said. "It's the small, quiet acts that matter most." Before Layla could reply, Ali tugged on Keanu's sleeve. "Are you really famous?" the boy asked in wonder. Keanu chuckled. "I'm just a person, Ali. Like your dad said, kindness spreads like ripples in a pond." Layla watched as Keanu and Ali walked into the mosque together, the boy talking excitedly. She stood there for a long moment, torn between her job as a journalist and the respect Keanu had asked for. In the end, she decided to write the story, but not in the way she had first planned. Instead of talking about Keanu's fame, she wrote about the power of kindness. She wrote about the beauty of people from different cultures helping each other. She wrote about how one act of goodness can spread and bring people together. The next day, the article was published. It was called The Ripple Effect: How a Stranger's Kindness United a Community. It didn't mention Keanu's name, but those who knew him would understand. And for those who didn't, it was a reminder that small acts of kindness could change the world. The story spread quickly. People all over the world were touched by it. Many shared their own stories of kindness. The idea of small ripples of good deeds touched hearts everywhere. Donations began pouring into the mosque from across the city, and even from other countries. The renovation fund, which once seemed impossible to complete, was now fully paid for. But more than that, the story brought people together. It created a sense of hope and unity. As for Keanu, he had quietly left the city. He didn't want attention. He didn't want praise. For him, this experience was personal. It was a reminder of human connection and the importance of being humble. Before leaving, he wrote a letter to Ali and his family. "Dear Ali, thank you for teaching me about Ramadan and the strength of your community. Remember, kindness is a language everyone understands. Keep spreading the ripples. With gratitude, your friend." Ali kept the letter in his notebook. It was special to him, a reminder of the kind man who made a difference in his life. Weeks later, Ramadan ended, and the mosque held a big celebration. The Yusuf spoke to the crowd. "This Ramadan has shown us the power of kindness," he said. "One small act of generosity created a wave of change. We may never know who our mystery donor truly was, but we can honor their kindness by continuing to spread good in our own lives." Ali stood in the front, holding a small pebble from the pond near his house. He placed it in a glass jar near the entrance of the mosque. "This is for the ripples," he said to anyone who asked. "So we never forget." Months later, Keanu was filming in another country when a package arrived on set. It was a small, carefully wrapped box with a note. "To the man who taught us about ripples, thank you for reminding us that kindness has no borders." Inside was a framed photo of the renovated mosque, shining in the sunlight. Next to it was Ali's drawing, the mosque with a tall figure smiling beside it. Keanu smiled, his heart full. He didn't need fame or recognition. Moments like this, quiet, meaningful, and full of kindness, were what truly mattered. And so, the ripples of kindness continued, spreading far and wide, touching lives in ways no one could have imagined. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.